The deafening roar of helicopter blades shattered the peaceful silence of Willow Creek Farm just as 28-year-old Sarah Carter finished arranging baskets of fresh tomatoes beside the old red barn. 8 months pregnant and raising her unborn child alone, Sarah had long accepted that life would never be easy. Every sunrise meant another day of hard work, another day of wondering how she would pay the bills, and another day of hoping her baby would have a brighter future than she ever did. The neighbors often whispered about the mysterious father who had disappeared the moment he learned she was expecting, but Sarah ignored the gossip and focused on surviving. Suddenly, a sleek black helicopter descended into the field beside her crops, sending dust and leaves flying through the air. She shielded her eyes as a tall man in an expensive black suit stepped onto the muddy ground, carrying a leather briefcase that looked completely out of place on a farm. His polished shoes sank into the mud, but he hardly noticed. His eyes locked onto Sarah, and for a brief moment, he froze as though time itself had stopped. Sarah stared back, unable to understand why a billionaire would land on her property. The stranger slowly whispered, "It can't be you." Confused, Sarah tightened her grip on her belly and asked if he needed directions. Instead of answering, the man stepped closer, his face filled with disbelief and emotion. He introduced himself as Daniel Brooks, one of the wealthiest entrepreneurs in the country. Sarah politely nodded, though the name meant little to her. Daniel continued staring until memories flooded back. 5 years earlier, during a violent thunderstorm, his private car had crashed into a flooded ditch while he was traveling without security after secretly visiting his late mother's hometown. His phone was destroyed, and he had wandered injured through heavy rain until collapsing near an isolated farmhouse. Everyone else had ignored him, assuming he was just another traveler, but one young farm woman had carried him inside, cleaned his wounds, given him dry clothes, hot soup, and refused every dollar he offered. She simply smiled and said, "Kindness isn't something you sell." Daniel had spent years searching for the woman who saved his life, but the farmhouse had later been abandoned, and no records led to her. Now, standing before the pregnant farmer, he realized she was the very woman who had saved him. Sarah slowly remembered the exhausted stranger from years ago, but never imagined he had become one of the richest men in America. Daniel looked around the struggling farm, noticing broken fences, worn equipment, and empty storage sheds. He quietly asked why she had never accepted his reward. Sarah smiled sadly and replied that helping someone in need never required payment. Daniel felt ashamed that despite all his wealth, he had failed to find the one person who had shown him genuine compassion. Before saying another word, he noticed the pregnancy and gently asked where the baby's father was. Sarah lowered her eyes and admitted she had been abandoned months earlier. Daniel stood silently as guilt, gratitude, and determination filled his heart. He knew this unexpected reunion was no accident. But what he planned to do next would change both their lives forever. Before we continue this unforgettable journey, take a moment to subscribe to Forever Dad Stories, because every story here reminds us that one act of kindness can change lives forever. Daniel spent the rest of the afternoon walking through the farm with Sarah, quietly learning about the hardships she had endured. The crops barely covered expenses, the tractor had been broken for months, and medical bills for the baby's upcoming birth continued piling higher every week. Yet Sarah never complained or asked for sympathy. She simply worked harder each day, believing that dignity came from perseverance, not pity. Daniel admired her strength more than any successful executive he had ever hired. Before leaving, he made a single phone call. The following morning, dozens of construction trucks, farming specialists, veterinarians, and equipment operators rolled onto the property. Sarah stood speechless as brand new machinery replaced the rusted equipment, damaged fences were rebuilt, irrigation systems were installed, and workers transformed the neglected land into one of the most advanced farms in the county. Daniel officially purchased the neighboring land and placed it under Sarah's ownership, ensuring her and her child's future would always be secure. When she tried to refuse, Daniel reminded her that no amount of money could repay the night she had saved his life without expecting anything in return. Weeks later, Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby boy named Noah. Daniel arrived at the hospital carrying only a small teddy bear instead of expensive gifts. He explained that real family wasn't measured by wealth but by showing up when people needed you most. Over the following months, he became a trusted family friend, helping Noah grow while encouraging Sarah to expand the farm into a thriving community business that employed struggling single parents. News reporters soon discovered the remarkable story of the billionaire who never forgot the woman who had once rescued a complete stranger during a storm. Millions watched the interview, expecting to hear about business success, but Daniel shared a different lesson. He told the world that the greatest investment anyone could ever make was simple kindness because kindness always returns when least expected. Sarah's farm became a symbol of hope across the country, inspiring countless people to help others without asking for anything in return. Years later, children laughed through the once empty fields, fresh produce filled every barn, and the helicopter that had once arrived as a symbol of wealth became a reminder that gratitude is far more valuable than money. Daniel often visited without cameras or headlines, joining Noah in planting trees and harvesting vegetables, proving that true greatness is revealed through humility rather than status. As the sun set over the flourishing farm, Sarah looked across the fields and realized that her greatest blessing had never been the land, the equipment, or the financial security. It had been the unexpected return of someone who remembered a single act of compassion after all those years. Daniel smiled as Noah ran across the field calling him Uncle Dan, knowing that fate had reunited them for a reason greater than either of them could have imagined. Sometimes life rewards those who expect nothing, and sometimes the smallest act of kindness grows into a legacy that changes generations. If this heartwarming story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Forever Dad Stories for more emotional stories that remind us hope is always worth believing in.